The new game Mangavania is neither a manga nor based on one. It's also not a Metroidvania game, at least not in the traditional sense. In fact, everything about this name is a lie. A dirty, rotten, smelly lie. It's also a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm gonna recommend it. Here's my review of Mangavania. This is the story of a young ninja named Yuhiko who's on a mission through the underworld in a last-ditch effort to find a cure for his brother's illness. Through 20 challenging stages, he'll fight undead monsters, save the lost souls, and take on 2 wonderfully designed bosses in order to save a family member. Mangavania is one of those very simple and cheap throwback games that we're used to seeing from publisher Sometimes You. Now, if that name sends a shiver down your spine, don't worry, because this is actually one of the better games from the infamous company. Yes, it's a simple action platformer with moves and abilities you've definitely seen in countless other games. Yet, it handles well and is clearly made by somebody who knows a thing or two about great level construction. The goal in most levels is fairly straightforward. You explore the self-contained, non-linear stages in order to track down a set number of red bats, which will open up the exit door and send you to the next stage where you'll do the exact same thing all over again. Obviously, there are a lot of enemies and obstacles that are going to get in the way, as well as a lost soul that is hidden away in every level. Now, Yuhiko may be young, but there are more than enough moves to get the job done. Beyond the typical sword attacks and a few wall jumps, we're able to buy a few helpful abilities that'll make every level a lot easier. Yuhiko will be able to double jump, dash forward, and even use a bow and arrow to hit faraway enemies and targets. Although optional at first, the game will start to require these upgrades for the puzzle solving. For example, you'll definitely want a ranged weapon for the exploding enemies and a dash move to reach the harder platforms. In case you haven't noticed already, these moves and abilities come straight out of a typical Metroidvania game. However, as far as the structure goes, this is not a typical Metroidvania game. Normally, there'd be a big map that you would poke around at, with the goal of picking up new items and powers that'll open up new sections to explore. It's a tried and true formula, so you expect certain things when you see that genre tag. By splitting the game up into 20 bite-sized stages, Mangavania ditches most of the genre tropes. In fact, I'm just gonna say that this is not a Metroidvania game, at least not in the way that most people expect. The game's also not a manga, but at least it goes for a stylish black and white look that evokes the spirit of the books. Sadly, the game misses a big opportunity by not having manga-style panels to help fill in the story. I don't know, perhaps this is asking too much, seeing as this comes from a first-time developer. But with a name like Mangavania, you can't help but want at least a few panels here and there, right? As a first-time developer, Alexander Nikolaev has a lot to be proud of. The important thing is that he gets all of the basics right. Mangavania is a good playing platformer with precise handling and easy gameplay. Every time I died, it was because I did something wrong or I missed the jump. There were no cheap deaths, and I never once fumbled around with the controls. I also think the level designs are clever and fun to explore. They're never so large that you'll get lost, yet they're always large enough to make you feel like you actually earned something when you finally open up that exit gate. The stages are full of unique obstacles, and Alexander doesn't attempt the same trick too many times in a row. There may be only 20 stages, but there's a surprising amount of variety between them. I'm also really impressed with the boss designs. I think the second one you face is genuinely creepy looking, and I like how it ties into something that you saw in the regular levels. Unfortunately, I didn't find these boss encounters to be all that much fun to play, but thankfully they're mercifully short, allowing us to get back to the good stuff in a hurry. I have a hunch that most of the other problems I have with the game can likely be attributed to the developer's time, budget, and inexperience. A good example of this is the background, something that doesn't change from beginning to end. While I love the level designs, the actual background is a bit bland. It would have been nice to go from night to day as we traveled through the 20 stages. I also wish that Mangavania came with an option menu, allowing us to adjust the music, add filters, and I don't know, maybe even change around the button configuration. I mean, this is pretty much standard for most games, so I'm honestly a little disappointed there's no option menu here. Thankfully, the few issues that I have with the game are hardly deal breakers. Sure, it would have been nice to have manga-inspired cinemas, more levels, and maybe better backgrounds. But at the same time, first-time developers can only be so ambitious. Instead of biting off more than he could chew, Alexander delivered a fun action game with enjoyable level designs and great gameplay. That's a win in my book, which is why I have no problem recommending the dubiously titled Mangavania. While the title may be a bit misleading, there's no doubt that Mangavania is a fun throwback action game with great level designs and a stylish aesthetic. It's a small and inexpensive game that proves that first-time developer Alexander Nikolaev has what it takes to make a compelling platformer. While it certainly would have been nice to have more story elements, better backgrounds, and a bit more depth to the gameplay, this wannabe retro release still delivers where it counts. In the end, Mangavania's biggest sin is that it left me wanting more, which is hardly the worst thing you can say about this type of game. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. Who is video gaming's greatest ninja? Is it Ryu Hayabusa, Joe Musashi, one of those mutant turtles? Maybe it's the Ninja Warriors and their super wide screen. No matter who it is, let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back later this week with a review of Goody, which is just one of 3 retro Golden Age titles coming straight from Europe. Also, we have a Nintendo Power-centric April Fool's Day video planned. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.